Hi there, this is David and welcome to the top 10 best PlayStation Final Fantasy towns. If you missed the previous episodes covering the other PlayStation towns, please check the video description for links. Here, we're going to be recounting the best towns from Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 only. Oh, and Midgar? That's out of the running, sorry. It's just too easy to place it as number 1, and also, I've already featured it in my top 10 Battleground Towns video. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 10. Timber of Final Fantasy VIII. An interesting thing happens on the way to Timber. Squall and the gang get the first of many flashbacks to a bunch of morons, Laguna, Kyros, and Ward, and their parallel adventure to rescue Alone. After that vignette is over with, we arrive in Aquamarine Timber, the railway junction and central hub of the entire continent. The town is occupied by Galbadian forces, but life for the ordinary people still trudges along. A steampunky atmosphere permeates the entire town too, with clockwork gears interspersed in the signs and buildings, and the turquoise color palette used as a stroke of genius. Here you'll find the main offices of Timber Maniacs, and Squall will begin to actually act like a human being with emotional capacity since he meets up with Rinoa, the leader of the Resistance, to run a joint mission in order to kidnap President Delling by derailing his train. Number 9. Junon of Final Fantasy VII. This town is the last barrier that you have to make it through in order to finally leave Shinra's grasp once and for all. After you make it through Junon, you can rest and relax in Costa del Sol, party it up in Golden Saucer, and just be free of their clutches. But the town is not going to make it easy for you. The whole place has a very Berlin during World War II vibe, from everyone being indoctrinated by this Shinra, to the town being literally split into upper and lower districts. It's almost like Midgar in miniature. There's a lot of stealthy fun going on here too, from dolphin jumping to reach the higher area, to going undercover as a soldier and marching down the streets. There's also lots of little things off the beaten path, tucked away in alleys that the intrepid explorer is sure to stumble across. And let's not forget the bitch slap heard round the world when you come back here much later on in the game. Number 8. Esthar of Final Fantasy VIII. The world of Final Fantasy VIII is easily the most technologically advanced setting that Square has created to date, and among the cities visited in Squall's adventure, Esthar stands out as the most scientifically advanced nation by far. Rather than pursuing war, they seek peace, and as such, have been hidden by a cloaking device for the past 17 years. It's quite the feat to hide such a massive, beautiful city, and it's just a testament to their technological prowess. Esthar is also easily the largest town in the game, divided up into 2 main districts, but also featuring an airport, shopping mall, presidential palace, laboratory, and launch pad. To help you navigate the sprawling metropolis, there are lifts scattered around that will take you to various other districts, but even with all that, it's clear that you can only explore a tiny sliver of this city. The most shocking part to me, though, was the whole tie-in with the flashbacks that you've been having, when you learn that Laguna is actually the president. Number 7. Delling City of Final Fantasy VIII. A Parisian-inspired city, decked out with lights and set in darkness. I love it. This is the capital of Galbadia, and as such, you're firmly entrenched in enemy territory. Your party isn't really free to explore it all openly, though. They have a mission to accomplish, to assassinate the sorceress Edea. In fulfilling the mission, the game does quite a few things that I do enjoy, such as splitting up your party and providing a challenging series of boss fights. As the Disc 1 finale, lots of storyline is also revealed, as we learn about Rinoa's family and what happened to Cypher. But the creme de la creme is the closing cliffhanger, where instead of us assassinating her, Edea instead turns the tables on us by immolating President Delling, then turning her sights on both Rinoa and Squall. Number 6. Daguerreo of Final Fantasy IX. An optional town hidden away in a remote archipelago and filled to the brim with secrets, cameo appearances, puzzles, and ultimate weapons? Yes, please! Back in the day, many RPGs had optional towns. Silvera from Final Fantasy IV, Mirage Village from 5, Miranda and Tizen from 6, not to mention Tanticle Castle from Dragon Quest II, Noannual, Sue, and more in Dragon Quest III. I mean, the list just goes on and on. so it's really a shame that developers have recently moved away from this previous genre staple. Daguerreo is a scholar's sanctuary, stacked floor to ceiling with books, peppered with waterfalls. Here you'll encounter Gilgamesh, use secret passages to access hidden areas, and synthesize some of the best weapons in the game. I love this place. More games need to go back to having towns just off the beaten track that truly reward the player for thorough exploration. Number 5. Treno of Final Fantasy IX. I like towns that change things up a bit from the typical mold. Having Treno enveloped in an endless night makes it special and memorable, much in the same way that having Clara engulfed in a sandstorm or Bemisia trapped in an endless torrent of rain makes them special too. There's just so much to see and do in this town, from the auction house, to the card game, to the caged monsters in the weapon shop, to even the Stelazio side quest. It's just the gift that keeps on giving. I also love all the little active time events that you can see with your other party members as they roam off to explore the town on their own. Why no other Final Fantasy games have included this ingenious private action type thing is beyond me. It really does help flesh out your characters so that you can get to know them in more intimate and personal ways. Number 4. Cosmo Canyon of Final Fantasy VII. I love this place. Being set in the middle of Canyonlands under an eternal desert sunset is just breathtaking. As guardians of the planet, Bugenhagen teaches you all about the life stream, the Ancients, Meteor, and the Promised Land. Also, Red 13's side quest where he learns about his late father is not only interesting, adding much needed backstory for the character, but heartfelt and challenging. I also love the campfire scene where everybody pours out their heart and soul to you. Arius is dealing with her inner struggle of finding out that she's the only ancient left. Tifa still has her doubts about what happened to Cloud and to Nibelheim. Barrett reminisces about the founding of Avalanche and mourns his fallen partners. Red is reminded of his late parents, and Yuffie, moronically, hates the place, saying that it's boring and wants to find materia. She really does have a one-track mind. Number 3. Nibelheim of Final Fantasy VII. What could be more fitting than an imposter town for our imposter protagonist? Yeah, it's kind of screwed up what happened here, but I like it. You hear about Nibelheim from the very beginning of the game, so if you're anything like me, you definitely look forward to your arrival to get some answers about Cloud's background. And when you finally come through the gates, it's pleasant enough. The architecture is reminiscent of what you would find in the German Alps, but underneath the facade is nothing short of a nightmare. I don't want to spoil too much here, but we learned that it got burned down by Sephiroth, and many villagers died in the Inferno. But now the people know nothing about it, and many of those who died are mysteriously still alive. And what about Shinra's mansion with a vampire of all things lurking in the basement? It's going to be hard to top this town, because it's nothing but gaslighting for Cloud, Tifa, and the player. Number 2. Lindblum of Final Fantasy IX. This game has some of the best towns in the entire franchise. I love that they're not modern and devoid of character. Instead, each and every town is a unique landscape in and of itself, and nothing encapsulates this quite like Lindblum. Everything about its scope and design is amazing. Many times, as you just stare off into the distance, you can see how it reaches up into the clouds. You really do feel like you're smack dab in the middle of a massive steampunk-inspired city. And while there are other towns that are similarly massive in this franchise, many times you can't explore the entire place. But not here. You have free reign to explore the entire cityscape to your heart's content. Synthesis is also introduced here, and you get access to your first accessories, so you can truly begin building up your characters and experimenting with the growth system that the game implements. And number 1, Alexandria of Final Fantasy IX. This is a starting town, which I typically do try to avoid, but I'm sorry, this place is just so good, and so much happens that I couldn't leave it out. Located on a plateau situated above the mist, here you'll meet up with fully half of your party members. It's a masterstroke how everyone roams around on their own before finally meeting up in the chaos of a night at the theater. And while not as large as Lindblum, Alexandria is still one of the largest towns in the game, with many different areas to explore, hidden treasures to find, aggravating minigames to completely ignore, rooftops to climb, and a large castle to investigate as well. You remember how the first 3 Wild Arms game began with a scenario system? Well, it was great there, and it's great here. It's nice to see everybody's motivation for leaving the city, how they got caught up together, and the meshing of their personalities as they go through their daily lives before they crash land in the evil forest, which truly kicks off my favorite Final Fantasy game. Well, that's it for the top 10 best PlayStation Final Fantasy towns. Which are your favorites? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and look forward to the best PlayStation 2 towns video coming out soon. What are your favorites for that system? Let me know, and as always, have a good day.